Hi everybody, Jane here, and today we are going to talk about the 17 books that I read in the month of April. Um, I felt like it was kind of a mixed month. I was a little bit slumpy, but also I was reading some things that weren't really great, and it was kind of a mixed bag. So let's talk about it.
Pictures and patterns put into words that stream across the page, capturing life as soft spoken.
All right, guys, before we get into the books that I read or DNF'd, I do want to talk about my stats. So, at the beginning of the year, committed to reading 50% books on my own TBR, and I think it was 10% indie authors. I have really done well with indie author books, and I have not done nearly so well with reading books that come from my shelf. Part of that, I think, is because I'm reading a lot of manga, and the manga largely comes from my library and is not stuff that I've chosen to buy for myself. So this month, I read 17% indie and 35% books that I owned. So not terrible, but definitely not what I'm quite aspiring to. All right, so this month, let's start with the 3 books that I DNF'd. The first one is I believe it's called the Quince Project. This was sent to me by the publisher. It is an ARC. It is publishing May 2024. All right, this is about a girl who wants to be a party planner. She is in high school and her mom has recently passed away, so she is kind of dealing with the grief from the loss, and then also the party planning could involve a scholarship that she is trying to get. I didn't get very far in this. I tried it and just felt really, really confused. And so then I was like, oh, I'll try it again. So a week later, I picked it back up and started over, and I still felt really confused. I'm not sure if it's the teenager lingo. I'm not sure if it was the cultural aspects of this book. It is the main character is Hispanic, I believe. I don't know if I don't know exactly where her family was from, but I don't know a lot about Spanish culture or Hispanic culture, and I don't speak Spanish. And so some of the things in this book may have been a just not for me because I couldn't get it. And so about 3 chapters in, I thought, I just can't go any further. So I ended up DNFing this. The next book that I read that I also DNF'd and didn't get super far in was Wotakoi. This is about a computer nerd. I was really fuzzy. This is again one that I struggled with understanding. So computer nerds in this culture are seen poorly, and people don't want to date them. And so this girl is like, I better not let any cute boys know that I'm a wotaku. And so then her friend is like, hey, instead of worrying about keeping that from other boys, just date me. I didn't understand. And sometimes that's a thing with manga. This was just not for me. All right, so the last DNF I got more than 50% into. So I have a little bit more to say. And that was Show Me a Fake Fiance. I did read this with my writer friend, Gower Bat, and he had a better time with it than I did. This is a book about a woman who has recently left her abusive husband. She's a single mom with 2 kids, and she starts working for this guy who owns a ranch, and he also has a child, and so they're fake dating for reasons that are kind of unclear, and they fall in love. I did not enjoy this book at all. I'm kind of glad I didn't finish it, because normally with a buddy read, I don't DNF it, but in this particular case, my buddy had finished it way ahead of me. Like, they had been behind in the buddy read, and then they read the whole thing in one day, and I was like, oh, I don't want to do this if we're not buddy reading it. I do think that this is partly a me issue. I read a lot of romance, and I think that this book might work better for somebody who doesn't read romance heavily, because I just felt like the author took a lot of tropes that I generally like and then used them in a way that didn't work for me. Um, just to give you an example, like, there is this one scene in the book where him and her decide to take their kids to the zoo, which is cute, which is great. Take the kids to the zoo. I like it. But then she's like getting tired, but she's not wearing heels or anything, and it's just the zoo. And he's all like, I wonder if I should carry her around. And I was like, that seems wrong. Like, I just, firstly, like, are you talking piggyback or are you talking like bridal style? But also, like, you're at a zoo. It's not like she sprained her ankle or anything. You're just walking around with the kids looking at polar bears sit on a bench. You don't need to like bridal carry her throughout the zoo. And like, maybe that would be cute in the right circumstances, but for me, it just it didn't work. It didn't feel good. I also found the pacing kind of strange, and the writing style itself a little bit odd. I actually at one point went and looked up this author to see if maybe they were two authors trying to blend voices, because the voice just sounded so off. It seems to be just one author, but the author voice felt very inconsistent throughout the book, and that really didn't work for me. So I decided I didn't want to finish this. I don't really recommend it, but if this seems like just a premise that you absolutely would love and you want to give it a try, I would say it might work better for somebody who's not heavily into the romance genre, because you'll have seen these tropes done and done so much better. All right, so let's move in to my 3 stars, because I did not have any ones, I did not have any twos. And that is generally the case for me, because I typically DNF very heavily. If something is not working for me, it's gone. I'm not going to play with it. So, 3 stars. The first one I have for you is the graphic novel Turtle Bread. I don't have a lot to say about this. This is about a girl who has anxiety, who goes to like a baking group and learns how to bake and learns to manage her anxiety. It was cute. It didn't do anything particularly amazing. It was just like a nice little way to pass the time. The next 3-star I have is My Gently Raised Beast. This is book 2 in the manga series, and I didn't think it was clear as the first one. The first one I really liked, and I really enjoyed where it was going. This one was a lot more confusing. This series is about a girl who was, her mother was the first wife of this emperor or king or lord. I'm not really sure what his rank is. It's been a little bit since I read this, but this really important guy, government guy. And he then left her and went on and remarried and had some kids. And this girl, her mother dies, and he goes and like gets her to raise with his other children. And she's having trouble adjusting, adapting. They don't like her. And so this shifter guy shows up, and we got a lot more of like his info and his culture. I am going to read one more of these and see if I feel differently about it, but this just kind of missed the mark for me. It wasn't as cute and sweet and fun as book 1. The next book, and I swear we are not just doing mangas and graphic novels today. It's going to look like it, but I promise you we are not. The next book that really was just okay for me was Tea Dragon Tapestry. This is the third in the Tea Dragon story. I really liked books 1 and 2. I thought this was the weakest of the 3. This world is about people who take care of these little dragons who grow tea leaves. It's cute, it's very diverse. I just didn't think this book really brought the things that I loved as well as the other books, and so I ended up being a little bit disappointed in it. The next book we have is it's Death in the Clouds. It is an Agatha Christie. It is one of the Poirots I'm reading. I'm doing kind of a Project Poirot. I'm trying to read through the series, and it was the most recent read. And Christie is kind of a hit or miss for me. Like, sometimes we read a Poirot and it is just hitting, and this one was just fine. So in this one, Hercule Poirot is on a plane, a woman is dead from a poisoned dart, and he was asleep on the plane when it happened, so he is very much like, I've got to figure out what happened, because like the blow dart was hidden in his chair, and so he's like, I must clear my name. Although, like, Jap never seemed like he was super like, oh, Poirot might have done it. As a matter of fact, like, the law enforcement people were like, oh, it's fine, we know you didn't do it. And he's like, no, I should be a suspect. So it was fine. I had suspicions of who it was early. I didn't understand why, or I didn't like guess why. Once it was through, I was like, okay, this is fine. It's a very meh Christie, not one of my favorites. Very like low mid. So I would throw it in with kind of how I felt about Blue Train. So for those who follow me, like, my very favorite Christie is probably Death of Roger Ackroyd, and then like Peril at End House is up there, and then kind of mid tier is things like Mysterious Affair at Styles, and then at the bottom, at the absolute bottom, is the Big Four. So this is like above the Big Four by a couple levels, but it's just, I didn't love it. It was just okay. Wasn't a great Poirot. All right, the next 3-star I have for you is another mystery. Maybe it wasn't a mystery month, I don't know. And that is The Case of the Fleet-Footed Mummy. I had really loved the first book in the series, and I don't know if just so much time had elapsed since I read the first book, but this one just didn't do it for me, and I don't think I'm going to be continuing. This is about a guy who has these 2 little corgi dogs, Sherlock and Watson, and they help him solve mysteries. So in this particular book, him and his girlfriend are out with friends at a Egyptian show. Like, they've got mummies, and it's like a presentation about Egyptian society. They've got a mummy and some artifacts that they've shown. And suddenly the mummy and some of the artifacts are missing, and the police chief asks him to bring in the dogs and see if he can figure out what is going on. So in this case, the detective is like a middle-aged man. He's like 40, and he's a widower. So all of those things worked really well for me in the first book, and they didn't not work for me in this book. I do like that, and it gives this series something that's a little different from what I typically see in cozies. My issue with this was it was kind of over the top Scooby-Doo-ish, and I don't remember the first book being that way, although it might have been. I don't know. But, you know, there's this, is it really a mummy? It's like, no, I'm not, that this is a cozy mystery with dogs. I don't want the, is it a mummy? It might be a mummy. It's not a mummy, you sillies. Like, it just, that part did not work for me. I didn't want there to be a question of if it's a mummy. It's not a mummy. It just needed to be not a mummy, and let's move on. So this takes place like around Halloween time, so it has like really cool Halloween-esque vibes, but it just was not a cozy as much as it was very comedic and goofy, and I think that's not what I was feeling for this book and not what I wanted from it, so it ended up being a miss for me. All right, so it is time to move on to my 4 stars, of which there's a crap ton. I had so many 4 stars this month. I had 0 5 stars, 0 6 stars, like nothing that was amazing, nothing that, but a lot of things that were above average. We had quite a few 3s and then just a crap ton of 4s. So a lot of things I liked but didn't necessarily love. So the next thing on this list is actually 3 of the Beastars. I read Beastars 3, 4, and 5. This is a manga series about a school where there's herbivores and carnivores trying to get along, and our characters particularly are in drama club together. It's interesting. I didn't enjoy the first book, and then as different things are happening, I'm fascinated. Sometimes it's a bit of a train wreck, but I like it enough that I want to keep reading. So I am going to be reading the next one soon. They were all solid 4s, but there's nothing really to talk about with them. The next book I read was Lauren's Barbarian. This is the first book in the Ice Planet Home series, which is like a spin-off series from Ice Planet Barbarians. If you've been following my channel, you know I love Ice Planet Barbarians, like obsessed. And this book, basically I started reading it because I was waiting for the next Ice Planet Barbarians book to come to my Libby app. This one was available and I just needed more Ice Planet, so I hopped in. I didn't love this, but I think that's a me issue. I think the issue is it's got so much plot and so much world building, and I just wanted some romance. So I don't know how much I can tell you without spoiling things, and if you've never read any of the Ice Planet Barbarians, the slight spoilers. But Lauren is one of the women who was with the Ice Planet Barbarians on Knot Hoth area. I don't know what they actually officially call it since we have new areas sprouting around, but she was with the Knot Hoth area aliens, and her and another girl end up floating accidentally to this island. And it is a tropical, lovely island on planet Knot Hoth, which is something that, I mean, I think everybody who's been reading the books is like, yay, not cold. It doesn't last, but that's okay. So anyway, Lauren gets there, gets on the beach, and she almost immediately resonates with one of the 2 guys there. So there's 2 guys, and we find out there's different clans of people living there that are similar, but not the same as the Sakui, who are the aliens that we're used to from the series. These people all look a little bit different. We have people who have like feline features, I think, particularly facial hair. We have people who have really, really long horns. Those are the longhorns. And then the guy that she ends up resonating to is a strong arms. He's got 4 arms. So it's a lot of like exploring the clans and exploring what's going on in this area. And long story short, she realizes that they should probably get back with the rest of the Knot Hoth people. This was good. It's just like, I am coming to the Ice Planet books for the romance and the smut. And there just wasn't a ton of romance and wasn't a ton of smut. Also, like, Lauren and the guy can't communicate, and I hate that. Like, I get that that's within the Ice Planet series, we do that a lot. We do a lot of, okay, these people can't communicate. They've got to figure out how to make it work without communicating. And it's not a trope I'm enjoying. I wish we'd stop that. Just stop. So it's a Ruby Dixon, so I felt the fun with it. There's some good moments, some fun stuff, lots of Ice Planet related plot, and I do plan to continue because I really can't not. But it was not my favorite. And like I said, I think this one had too much plot, too much adventure, too much stuff going on, and not as focused on the couple, which is what I want. I want all the cute couple stuff. So yeah, this one was okay. It was a 4-star. It was better than a lot of stuff I read, but it was kind of a miss for an Ice Planet book. So The next book I read was Out of Character. This is a male-male romance between Milo and Jasper. So Jasper was in Conventionally Yours as a side character, and I loved Conventionally Yours. I ended up giving that a 5-star. And this was fine, but it didn't hit the way Conventionally Yours did for me, even though it was using some of the same tropes. So Jasper and Milo were childhood friends, and Milo became one of the cool kids, and Jasper was nerdy, and Jasper was gay and open. And Milo at the time didn't know that he liked boys. So as, they got into like middle school, Milo's crowd was rude to Jasper and mean to Jasper, and Milo didn't stand up for him and didn't help him out. And so they really had like this broken rift friendship. Well, Milo has made a very big mistake. He has lost his brother's collectible cards. There's this card game in the world called Odyssey. I don't know if it's a real card game or not, but Jasper works at a store that has these Odyssey cards. So Milo comes to him and says, listen, my brother's deployed. I just, gambled away these cards and I need to get some new cards. And Milo's like, or Jasper's like, yeah, those are super rare and hard to get. So good luck with that. But unfortunately or fortunately, Jasper needs help with a charity event, and Milo is exactly the right person to help him with the charity event. So he is kind of like, all right, you know what? I will try to help you with your quest for these cards if you help me with my charity event. And Milo's like, yeah, sure. And Jasper's like, okay. And so it's like a hate to love thing. And hate to love or enemies to lovers is just not my favorite trope. It worked really well in the first book, but it was kind of a miss for me on this one. I didn't like Milo and Jasper nearly as much as I liked Conrad and Alden in the first book. So it was fine. It was a little bit of a disappointment. Like, I think that's the theme this month. I'm reading a lot of sequels to stuff, and the sequels are just not as good as the first book, which I think is one of the reasons I just kind of felt overall disappointed this month with a lot of the stuff I was reading. Okay, so then the next book on our list that was a 4-star is Iris Kelly Doesn't Date. This is a female-female romance, and half I read it and half read it on audio. I read it because my daughter got it and wanted us to buddy read it, and so we read it in the car together and then ended up reading it separately, especially because at some point it got very, very spicy. And so while I am open to my kids reading spice, I don't necessarily, as spicy as this got, wanted we didn't need to do that as a group. So anyway, Iris is like, she's very in her masculine. She does not date. She just sleeps with people. And she has not had a partner for a while. She's had like 2 really bad exes, and she's sworn off love. So she goes to a bar and she meets Stevie. Stevie has a terrible anxiety disorder. Stevie recently left a long-term relationship and is trying to get back out there and just doesn't know how. Well, her and Iris kind of try to hook up, but Stevie vomits on her. Yes, that's how we start this. The meet cute is vomit. So obviously things don't go well at the attempted one-night stand. Stevie's left at her house, and Iris is like, okay, well, good luck with that. Sorry about your luck, friend. Then Iris's friend convinces her to try out for this play, and Stevie is cast already as one of the leads. And so she ends up cast as like the romantic interest of Stevie's character. And so as they're putting on this play and doing the theater stuff, they end up in like a fake dating situation that leads to them falling in love. I overall really enjoyed this. It was nice. I haven't read a lot of female, but it was nice to see the spicy bits in it. I think that was great. And um, I appreciated that. I think sometimes that we consider like female intimacy to be like male gaze stuff, and not really authentic intimacy in a romance. So I was happy to see that. I thought the characters were interesting. I loved Stevie's anxiety disorder. As somebody who has anxiety myself, I just really felt seen by everything with Stevie. And I thought the theater part of this was good. There was a lot of like other characters. This is a sequel, but I haven't read the first book. I think the first book the first book is Delilah Green Doesn't Care. I think that's the first one. And I'd heard good things about that one, but hadn't read that one. So then I read this one. I may go back and read Delilah Green Doesn't Care because this worked for me. I enjoyed it. It was a cute book. The next book we have is a manga. It is Blood on the Tracks, Volume 6. Because we're so deep into this one, I'm not going to talk about it heavily. Kid is hiking with his family. His cousin has an accident, and it's suspicious. And his mom is a freaking psycho. And we're just riding that train. I am really enjoying this series and having a good time with it. And I do plan to continue the Blood on the Track series. All right. The next book I have for you is The Beast's Bride by Jill Myles. This was interesting. I will probably do a video talking a little bit more about why I picked this up and my adventure with this book. But the quick version is I had a good time. It's a little bit campy and over the top. So it is a Beauty and the Beast retelling / reimagining. We have Pippa, who has died in our reality. She suffered a terrible accident, and her fairy godmother shows up and is like, hey, you can either haunt the parking garage the rest of your immortal life, or you can jump realities with me and help me get this fated couple together. And so Pippa's like, okay, sounds good. So she is basically like brought into the Beauty and the Beast world, and she is the stepsister of the Beauty in this case. And so they go to the castle, and she is trying to get her sister to fall in love with this beast. And of course, she knows the Beauty and the Beast story. So she's trying to get her sister to fall in love with this beast, and it's just not working. And she's finding that she has some feels for the beast. I love me a good Beauty and the Beast reimagining. This one is, I don't think this is going to be everybody's cup of tea. And I think in certain mindsets, it wouldn't have been mine either. I was ready to have just a popcornish good time. And I think if you're going into this for a popcornish good time with lots of Disney references, this is probably exactly for you. But if you want anything more serious or better, this may not be for you. I had a blast with it, but it was, I would say it was campy. I think campy is the best word I can use. It was very over the top. It was very unbelievable. Like there is a scene where they're having a party at the castle, and these adults are all playing 7 Minutes in Heaven. It's that kind of book. And I think if it works for you, it's really going to work and you're going to have a good time. But I don't think this is going to work for everybody. And I think at certain times and places in my life, it would have worked better for me, and it would have worked a lot worse than others. So I had a good time, but can't widely recommend. You know, if this sounds like what you're enjoying, it was a fun romp. But if this sounds like it's a little too corny, skip it. All right, we have one more book to talk about, and that is Always Practice Safe Hex. And this is yet another sequel that wasn't quite as good as the first book. So this is book 4 in the Stay a Spell series. Book 1 was Wolf Gone Wild. It was a 5-star for me, and I loved it. This series follows the Savoy sisters, who are sister witches in a town in Louisiana. I want to say it's New Orleans, but it may just be Louisiana. So these are sister witches that are in this town and end up falling in love with supernatural beings. So in book 1, we have Evie and Mateo, and Evie is the witch and Mateo is a werewolf. Book 2, we have Izzy and Devraj. Izzy is the sister, and then Devraj is the vampire. Book 3, we had Violet and Nico. Nico is a werewolf, and he is Mateo's cousin. And then in this book, we have our first Grimm. So this was cool. This is Livy and Gareth. And while I enjoy the overall writing of this series, some books and characters work better than others for me. This is a case where I did not particularly love either character. So we have Livy, who is... her and Garrett have both entered this competition involving marketing and social media stuff. And they are fighting for a cause. And they have to do this project with another witch to win this competition. And Gareth really has a passion project that he really cares about, which is making sure that youth in foster care that are supernaturals don't get lost in the system, have homes with supernatural parents, all the things. I am hugely into fostering and adoption stuff. Like, I would like to do that someday. That's near and dear to my heart. So this book, on that level, I was loving all of the, let's fight for these foster kids and learning about the foster system in this world as it deals with supernaturals. The characters themselves, though, so like the competition, the plot, I was pretty invested in. The characters themselves fell a little bit short for me. So Livy is probably, I don't know if she's my least favorite sister or if Izzy is, but I just felt like I never really got to know her. I felt like she was a little bit hard to know, and she is a little bit more masculine energy, typically. And I didn't enjoy her part in this story as much as I wanted to. Gareth is a very alpha male type, which we see a lot in this series. Like, I would say other than Mateo, a lot of the guys have been very like manly, rough, aggressive men, and that's really not my thing. And I think it was balanced enough in this book that Gareth being awful wasn't so much that I couldn't like understand why him and Livy were together. But he's kind of a narcissist. He's kind of like not a guy I would ever want to date in real life. And I feel like most people wouldn't. I feel like you'd meet him and you'd be like, you're a red flag. This guy has so many red flags. This book is also super spicy. And one of the challenges I've had with this series as a whole is some of the spice is a little bit too much for my taste. Like, it's on that border of ick, and I think we came really close to crossing that border of ick / maybe crossed it once or twice. It's just, this spice is very aggressive, which is not for me. Like, I like the romantic spice. Like, you can give me all the spice, but I want it like the barbarian, that I love you, that I want to show you I love you, and you're mine, but not in a possessive, you're mine way, but like, And this had more of the submission energy, which I feel like is kind of a theme throughout this book, this whole series. I'm going to continue. There's 2 books left, and I'm actually super excited for the last 2 books because the sisters and their partners are people I'm really invested in. But this one just ended up, it was fine. The writing was good. I like the world. I like the characters. I like the plot of these foster youth. The spice was well done, just a little bit not to what I'm into. And I mean, I really can't tell you this is a bad book because I don't think it's a bad book. I rated it a 4-star, but I really want more of the Wolf Gone Wild energy, and I'm just not getting that with any of the books after it. So like Evie and Mateo, they were my favorite couple, and I'm just like, I want to get to Evie and Mateo levels again, and I'm hoping in the next 2 books we will. We did not in this one. So again, not bad, just, you know, a little bit of a miss. All right, guys, those were the books that I read in April. If you have read them, please comment down below. Did you agree with what I've thought about? Did you disagree? If you've read the entire Stay a Spell series, based on what I've said here, do you think the last 2 books are going to work for me or not? As far as the Ice Planet Barbarian series, do we have a lot more plot in those, or was that just book 1, the setup, and then we're going to go back to typical like romance and spice and yeah, so leave all those in the comments below. And if you read any really good books that you'd like to recommend to me, or just want to tell me about the great stuff you've been reading, leave that in the comments too. If you just want to help the algorithm but don't really know what to say, you can just leave a little book emoji. YouTube likes when you say stuff. So please tell me all about your reading or leave me an emoji, and have a great day. This has been Jane. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.